And how are you this fine afternoon?
Awesome. Awesome. That's sounds great. I listen to all kinds of music, but now I'm into like dance, the old dance techno from the nineties.
Oh,
And so it's like,
Okay.
I was like, "Hey, listen, I've never heard this before." I'm like, "Oh, you've heard all the songs before, you're from the eighties." It's like, "You're right." And she didn't recognize them, like, it's just all mixed up. But it's got me like, really.
yeah. How there's to work to, you know, keeps you going. keeps you up.
Right upstairs here at some point or something. Fundraising for the new town hall. You look creative. So, John.
We're gonna keep it lively tonight, so you.
Yes.
Just a rush.
The song choice for tonight is Keep the Fire Burning.
Whoa.
Do the fire burning.
It is, but
Caffeine. he's gonna
it's
be-
actually caffeine in there. There's soda.
I like the George sounds good.
I'm like, wiping about it, going into all that. Cool.
You know if we're expecting Rob?
I haven't heard
Haven't heard?
You're assuming he knows 5 o'clock, that's a.
Well, it's 5:02, so let's go ahead and get started on the work section piece. So, 3 topics of conversation discussion would be the ARPA funds, the interest in Dollar General that has Dollar General's interest in Georgetown, and then the Strauss Park refresh projects, parking lot expansion. So let's go ahead and get started on ARPA.
Could we do Strauss Park first for Bob?
Well,
He's gonna speak for the first part of the
Oh,
meeting.
okay,
I thought about it.
Okay.
Thank you, but he's got some action items
Oh, that's right,
early on in
yeah.
the meeting, so.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to go home and come back.
No.
Okay, all right.
If I'm here, I'm prepared to spend the night away.
Nobody's spending the night. And we haven't yet.
so close.
It gets late, but we haven't yet, so, okay. Yep,
Okay, so, this is the latest and greatest possibilities for ARPA funds. Okay, so I've, continued to, as we've discussed things, I've added more to the list and have tasked Jerry to then go back and then confirm from the final rule of how to spend ARPA funds, to then kind of go thoroughly legally to find out how legit is this to be a category or not? Does it fall within the parameters? Is it truly unrestricted? However, we're gonna find from Jerry that it's not truly restricted, unrestricted. But at least he'll be able to give us a little bit more of a parameters of what these funds can be appropriately spent for. But he-
Better introduction to me.
Yeah, that's.
Very great, kind of you, thank you. I've got, that's in the other. What's here? Hang on, sorry.
no worries.
I, in my head, this meeting started at 6.
Oh,
So in my head, I thought, okay, you can 5, 6, it's fine, be able to really kind of figure this out. Okay, I think it's.
Well, while you're thinking,
Yeah.
did anybody else have any other things that occurred to them that we might want to be adding to our list?
I did.
Yes,
After reading this informative
delightful, yes.
document. Just and I'm not 100% positive that it's the stormwater, but the drainage issue that we have over at Millside. I mean, if we were to ever proceed with some kind of, affordable housing on a town land, we have to handle that, and that seems to come under one of these headings, the water, wastewater, stormwater infrastructure. So That was my.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna think about drainage there improvements, then we should also probably consider actually looking into what it would take to do floodplain
They put them on.
mitigation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I had another one too.
Okay.
So if you remember last year on Skyline at the very top, we had the water main line froze.
Yes.
And the town spent a lot of money to rent those pads on a generator to kind of thaw the ground out. We anticipate that that probably won't be the last time we ever do that. And, perhaps we could purchase equipment like that in order to be ready for when that happens again. So, Ryan and I have been talking about it. He estimates it's about $70,000 to get the equipment for that.
Ground heat here.
Yeah, so it's a big generator, and it's these big pads and these tubes that connect to it that run, circulate the water through that. But it's about 70 grand, and so we end up spending, I wanna say 12 to 15,000 just to rent it for that 10 days that we had to do last year in order to thaw it. So why not, if that could be another option for equipment to be prepared for the next time.
So how many people have to do with this $70,000 investment?
I don't, I didn't ask that question. I just said, because he's currently looking at that to purchase. So I was like, well, before you purchase, maybe this could be appropriate funds for ARPA. So it's just another idea.
Is he targeting that equipment to be used in that location again?
No, anywhere.
Cause we did mitigate that.
Yeah.
When they dug things up and replaced, they insulated before they backfilled, so that place shouldn't. But we may wanna do it elsewhere.
How long did they have to have it on there before they could actually work on the site?
Oh, it 10 to 15 days.
Oh, it was a couple of weeks
Yeah.
to thaw it, but then I don't think they worked on it until
Right,
it warmed
spring.
up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we did dig that out and we insulated, we put blue insulation around the whole water line. We also encouraged homeowners to insulate their service lines while open. However, no one decided to do that.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But that issue then would fall upon their responsibility if it fails again. Or
That's a shame, because it's amazing
Yeah.
how much insulation would protect it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we insulate everything, even up for 5 or 6 foot deep, we still insulate it, just.
Right.
Yeah, just do it.
Never an issue.
Right,
It's, Kenny's on $1.
totally.
I mean, I know we can't predict, but I would like to think of how many areas that would be useful.
I can't think of a lot of places that you'd get your money back very quickly where you couldn't just rent the unit
Right,
for a short term. I don't know about renting the unit and then maintaining the unit, and I don't know how far you can get with the unit and stuff. My feeling is it's probably not money well spent, that one.
but to me, that's a Band-Aid when we really need to dig it up, fix
Fix
it,
it.
insulate it, bury it, better, whatever
Go
the
ahead and
case
move
might
it.
be, rather than,
Looping it, right,
yeah,
get the water.
so,
So,
but I thought,
What was the millside water mitigation? I remember years ago, we did one with, what was that guy's name? Our water engineer.
or side,
Arsadi, yeah. It was like, I think there was an $80,000 price tag with the sump and then to the creek.
didn't we do some of that though, or didn't we prepare for some of that with some of the, I don't remember what the exact pieces would have been, but
I think that they mitigated some of the dirt that's come in and just, raise it so that the area can be clear. And then with the road, we're keeping the water off.
exactly,
Which I
that,
think is probably 90% of the problem.
yeah, keeping it from draining down. Mhm.
I thought we did some like major, when didn't we put some major sewer pipe, whatever, in there, drainage in there, and at the same time, we put it up at by the trailers and stuff. There was like 2 or 3 different areas that we were,
Or something?
yeah, did that have anything to do
Not with the mill site,
with?
and that area, you know, which is, the neighborhood that I live in is pretty low. You know, and has to drain all the way out and around along Main
And
Street.
actually up.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad little place.
And when I was doing the RFP at the time to get some of these estimates, then I walked out with 3, or did a site location visit with 3 different engineering firms. And what their suggestions were, they took our site study. And what are their suggestions, all 3 of them agreed on it too. One was, create a culvert near Marion, because that's where the water's coming down.
Right.
From Marion going north. They said put a culvert there so the water would trap there, and then they suggested putting a buried pipe underneath going all the way across the parking lot where the dumpster is, all the way to the ditch that's got the crosshatch, fence. They said that's what they would suggest, putting a pipe going off so water would drain over that direction. Next is to dig out or expand that ditch where the fencing is, because it's severely, it's got mud and everything else, and so it's not draining properly because it needs to be dug out or dredged and more. That was the second thing. The third thing was at the culvert where this water's draining, where the fence line is draining to the east, underneath the road at 15th Street right there, it's going towards,
The ditch.
the ditch, and it's just supposed to go, but however, that ditch has a lot of trees and debris in there, and they suggested digging that out, keeping it nice and clean so the water could flow back all the way down to the creek. So it kind of, it follows along that ditch, which is, Main Street, but towards the end of where the road then turns back to the west, Clear Creek, right, it kind of drops down in that direction. So those were the suggestions, and then going further up Main Street, doing another culvert to trap the water to get into that,
14.
yeah, 14th Street area before it even gets into the mill site. So those were their suggestions. All 3 of those companies made those same recommendations.
The one thing about that bottom of that trench is I think it's cement bottom.
Okay.
I think I remember that coming up at some point.
Did we actually put that drainage ditch on the east side of 15th Street? Is that up? They didn't want to dig that out. 'Cause I know those homeowners over there done a lot of.
The north side was put in by the development, if I remember correctly. The original one, the trench we're talking about. that's
That
been-
runs along 15?
Yeah, I think that was a developer item. And then the original creek used to go along Main Street. That was the original creek bed.
Right, and so we also, and I don't know if this has really been rectified, I just haven't heard any complaints about it, but they may be tied in together too. Because Jim Legere used to dig out that
Yes.
Yes,
The ditch
water.
behind Buckeye.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
yeah, it's just
I'm sure
it's
the
a remainder of the
creek,
creek that's
Yeah.
been filled in for property owners. Bill, I think, drives you crazy with the culvert underneath, 15.
Yeah, and we've gone out there multiple times,
It's just
and
low
it's
stuff.
it's not clogged like he's
No,
describing.
no, it isn't. I crawled under there and looked, it's just low slope.
Yes, that's exactly.
yeah, but is there incremental things that we could do if there are those 3 recommendations?
They're good ideas.
You know, especially, or are we continuing to invest our manpower and services over there to try to remedy it on, the Band-Aid piece, and then we've also owned that land that anybody really can't do much with, which
Right.
just sits there for us.
Yeah, it just sits there. I think that diverting the water down 14th, just going out in rainstorms and seeing would divert an awful lot of what's not taken care of by the repairs that the town has made to, Rose Street. So if we could get the water off of Main Street down to the creek, you know that area real well. Yeah, get that off of there, that would be the lowest cost thing.
Mhm.
I think for us to do and by your house.
Yeah.
Maybe put in a culvert.
Definitely.
Do you want a pool in your backyard?
There used to be a lake back there, I think, right? Between the apartments. I heard they used to ice skate. Mary said that when she was still alive. They used to build an ice skate, so that's a low
That's a
spot,
low-
too, and right across to yours. Like, that's still, I mean, when I did my house, to stay above the floodplain, if you look at where my house sits, it sits a foot above the floodplain. And then look across the street, so when you put that in perspective, yeah, all that is massively low, so anything, you know, you never know when you get that massive flood.
Right.
Yeah, after our massive snowstorms that we had. Let's synchronize our watches.
Yeah, I'd be a fan of like putting a lake back in there, it could be cool.
I think it was just a
And then we could
seasonal
stop
thing.
it, yeah.
I think they actually did.
Well, it's been cut out now, so there's actually like loosely a little alley there going back to those options, but.
And also just some of the improvements that you mentioned. One of the issues was the road slope. So we kind of sloped it on Rose Street to kind of go a little bit more angled towards the creek now. And then we put a curb in case there's high water, it would not go over that curb. And then we dug out.
Berm, right?
Perfect.
It's a berm.
Yeah, yeah, so the berm, yeah, the berm where 15th Street Bridge is, there's an area where the water's supposed to go back into the creek. And the berm was too high, so we dug that out to make sure that water now flows back into it. And then we finished the concrete pan, so that the pan now, the road is sloped towards the pan and the pan takes water back in there. So we watched many rainstorms and it works.
It works.
And so the water's not going towards the mill site now, that area. So those were the things that we were able to correct when we were, had them resurface the road and things like that. But the areas that we still didn't correct was the water coming from Marion. And then we did observe that it is going right into the mill site onto our properties that we own. And then it continues to pull up. And then if it's really heavy, we're not seeing where it was pulling up at the first apartment or the condo complex right there at the corner of 15th. That's where all the water.
Not as bad as it used to be.
It's not pulling up like it was because we corrected a lot of those things. So that's just the observations that we made.
I don't see you being able to really fix the flex like without a major incident,
It's still.
some sort of a fine.
Cool. Well,
I can give you a
Well,
quick
it's not-
report. Thanks for letting me quickly review my research. The materials I had carefully worked on aren't in my possession. They're 30 miles away, so.
How's your memory?
But, well, I've been able to refresh my recollection here,
Okay.
and I'm not to interrupt your discussion, but if you wanted to put me on the list.
We're ready.
Sure,
Yeah.
Those of you that read this 30-page, whatever you want to, you will notice that on page 30, it has a little chart. Says, okay, if it's less than $1 million and the use is enumerated by the treasury and no written justification, if it's less than $1 million and it's beyond what was enumerated by the treasury as eligible, you don't need a written justification. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be an enumerated, that it shouldn't be related to the purposes for which ARPA funds were originally designed, which was to help people recover from the pandemic. Having said that, the guidance that is fairly generous in some ways and not generous in one particular way. And what I was able to determine is capital facilities, yes, they sort of don't inquire, well, do you need this truck as a result of a deficit that occurred as a result of the pandemic or not? If it's capital equipment, then okay. And one of the concerns I had was whether, vehicles are capital. Because in some contexts, capital is like something you build. This building, the capital sewer plant, water plant, are vehicles capital. Well, the ARPA itself says explain, if you have to explain why capital expenditure is appropriate. For example, recipients should include an explanation of why existing equipment and facilities are inadequate. That gives me some comfort around the equipment. Aventura, Florida, in February of last year, spent some ARPA money for some police type vehicles. So, okay. Again, we're sort of in we're not in an arena where everything is really objective and black and white and you sort of read the tea leaves. No, that's what I'm doing rather than saying the answer is 42 and it's we're set, you know. So having said that, looking at the list, the road and bridge equipment and parks and rec equipment, probably so. And that's, you know, that's happening. In going through the rest of the materials as against the list here, I'll give you the bad news and the good news. The bad news is that one of the enumerated uses is to make up for revenue loss. So I said, Rick, check with Mary, Mary Sims, did we lose money? The good news is bad news. The good news is we didn't lose money, we made money.
Yeah.
People went home and they ordered a bunch of stuff online. And under the Mayfair decision, we ended up making more money. We did not lose money. So we can't really say we need this for revenue loss, which other communities did experience and said, because we lost $10,000 here, we can take $10,000 of the ARPA funds and pay salaries or really pay it for anything. So that means when you look at the list, one of the few things that doesn't otherwise fit into a category that I've observed is the website accessibility. That'd be nice if we could use the 50 grand in our funds to pay for what will require some kind of consultant, and Keisha's been working on that, to make our website accessible, under this new state statute, but it just doesn't pass any of the straight face tests that I can divine. So there's that.
But the good news too, though, is it's not gonna cost 50,000, then I forget.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So the elsewhere in the guidance, what I've been doing, sorry.
One thing that we did back then was we forgave some water and sewer fees that we thought we could then get reimbursed out of the county
Okay.
funds. But then that proved to not work out. So that's the only revenue loss I can think of that we actually experienced.
It would be nice to have a dollar amount on that, just so that
That's
we're,
right. We
Sure.
quantify that. Then, you know, this requires sort of what's the right way to say that, linking up the, you know, kind of connecting the dots a little. Because I do believe whatever the town chooses to do, we should document it in some kind of memo to the file. They have said no justification required, but, you know, I think that would be wise to do that at the time rather than after the fact. And that's not bad. So looking at the rest of the list of the possible project funds, that's the problem really is the website accessibility. The ARPA funds guidance does mention childcare, affordable housing, assistance to businesses that would have been impacted by the pandemic. So to the extent I'm not as sure about the downtown business incentives program, but at least it's a business. We try and revive it or enhance it. And, you know, if we're into straight face test passing rules, that might make it. Aside from it, actually, yes, that's something that I found was specifically mentioned. And I saw, transportation funds for roundabout, probably not, it's just not. Their broadband is mentioned. Lead line replacement, if it were the town's lines, I'd say that's capital, but I just don't think it makes sense for service lines. I would like to say, but no. The diesel exhaust system for the fire station might be considered capital because you are improving a capital facility, which is a building you own. That worked for me. Steve Robbie, the interim administrator, I've been looking for whatever list of capital improvements.
Yeah.
Rick found the list. So, you know, to the extent there's capital there.
And real quick, Gary,
Yeah.
we've done a lot of these already. The only thing that I would say that could be capital on here is he had a truck on here, a used truck. So, yeah, 3/4 ton truck. So I'm just gonna write there for a truck for under Steve Riley's.
So actually, it's almost easier in looking at this list, what doesn't pass a straight face test, that I frankly wouldn't be comfortable having the town advance it, and then you've got to justify it. So I would take website accessibility off, I think. I would take roundabout funds for the roundabout service, the lead line replacement off. I would take off number 14, or I mean, I just don't think paying off a loan.
Well, on page
Makes it-
41, it actually specifically says, no debt service or replenishing of financial reserves is allowed. So,
Yeah. Very good. So,
So what about the engineering for any town hall related? That still would let me know.
That's
well,
facilities.
capital costs, I'm comfortable with capital costs include the engineering you've got to do,
to get it done.
design that's part of your capital facilities improvement. So that would work. If you add all this up, I think you get pretty close to $266,000. And if you wanted to do a little memo file, say, these are the uses, this is why it's balanced under the regulations. And you put that in the file, those require the notification, but if ever else you got it, and you did it before you spent the money as opposed to after. It's always looks like kind of a security and an after the fact justification, which they should. But instead you gave a little thought, did some research, you made your good faith effort to comply with the law. And honestly, at under $1 million, what I think feds are saying is our lives are really busy and complex, and below $1 million is, we do not have time.
Chump change.
Yeah, although all of us are filing our taxes right now, saying themselves,
Yes.
no wonder.
Jared, thank you for doing.
Sure, yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Right, I would only like us to look at these possible expenditures and reference some of the, documents that we have, like the 5-year capital outlay. Let's make sure that, maybe we're where we're supposed to be or getting a little bit ahead on that. Let's look and review, the information that we received back on our retreat summary. And let's make sure that we're prioritizing these in alignment with that. And let's look back at our comprehensive plan that's, getting up there in years, but there are still, obvious priorities that we could weigh and make sure that we're on that right path rather than coming up with random great ideas. But, let's stay the path.
Yep. Okay, anything more to be said on this topic? All right, moving on. Tell us about Dollar General.
All right.
So Dollar General reached out to me. And it's a land developer who does these kind of things with them. And just at first saying, okay, Georgetown has been on our list. You fit the criteria of what we're looking for in a municipality. And we believe that Georgetown would be a high priority for us to bring the Dollar General. Okay, so then he began to ask, what is involved? Can you have a map of showing town and properties? We have a map showing stuff. So I directed him to the Clear Creek map where he can do his own research. He can click parcels and so forth. So, a week later, so he reached out again and said, okay, we found areas where it appears that this is town and property. Or it says Evergreen, it sounds like this is a connection with the town. And so he brought this idea and said, would the town be interested in selling town and property? Mary Sims and I had lots of discussions on this, even preparing for this time. What is clear is, at first she was wondering how much of the property that they're, let me find this map first, show you what I'm talking about. Here it is. So in the green section here This is where they have identified interests. Okay, well, the more we've researched and gone into the pictures, this is actually, our event parking area where we store the millings.
Right.
Okay? If I would have known that at the time, I would have been like, no, I don't let this go. This is too valuable for the town for event parking / we're storing millings right now. Although we have, significantly reduced our millings pile already, and we have another place to put this in the future. It's a very valuable piece of property. So the next question is, do we have the ability to develop this property right now? And the answer is no. And it is still every one of these parcels, and I would say this is the page that kind of shows how many parcels that represents. So if I had to guess 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, 18, 20, 24 smaller parcels. They're still owned by, Evergreen National Bank. As we've been paying them off, this is the debt service, showing how we're paying this off, all the parcels. Mary has been consecutively paying this off since November 15, 2012. And so as she pays it off, she puts a check, and then what happens is, Evergreen will release a parcel and then it'll turn over to the town of Georgetown. However, all of these parcels within this area that they've identified, or our event parking area / millings pile, is still owned by the Bank of Evergreen. So that it is, none of these have been released to the town yet. So we're not even in a place to develop this, nor work out a deal with anybody. So since I put this on here, I feel like it's a moot point right now. This particular property is not, we can't discuss this. It's not even an option. I think the bigger option to me that they would like to hear is, are we interested in a Dollar General? And for them,
What is a Dollar General?
It's like a dollar store thing.
Similar to Fancy
Like,
Dollar.
very much the same.
It's a different company?
Mhm.
done by the same company, they just have two different,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they're owned by the same.
okay.
but their business model is really.
Yeah, in fact, some of them now are, the new shops are half it's Family Dollar and the other half is Dollar General. So they're doing these little markets.
You do see them fairly close together in, where that it's not uncommon. I don't like the idea of having another one, and I don't like that idea of having that on that strip there. I don't think that's what Georgetown wants to portray. So I would say no.
And you can't put it there anyways.
Not yet.
But I just don't see the, competition is good, but I don't know if that's the type of businesses that we're trying to bring in.
They won't be competing with each other because they're owned by the same company.
Well, and we're also looking more at, individually owned, we're not looking at, not mega stores, but, corporate owned type things, we're either looking at the Sixth Street model, or even the developer that approached us to build near the heliport was
Yeah,
not
the
a,
other end of the.
yeah,
Whatever happened with that?
Yeah, they were gonna do a restaurant and then some retail space,
Yeah.
but where we stalled off on is just them doing the sewer lines. And we were partnering with them to put a manhole in, and they would have to do the sewer main, extend it out, but they just never moved forward.
but the sewer line is done. Oh, I
They
know.
haven't done the sewer line.
That was a condition of moving forward, but they acquired the property from them, so their owner isn't hurting.
And we agreed, and Kurt also agreed to put in a manhole himself. So they were just supposed to put the sewer main to connect it between the two, and then make the connection, and then the service line to that. But they,
So they lost their energy on
yeah,
Okay.
at least until this point, maybe,
it.
which is kind of sad because we're approaching building season. So.
Yeah, even if they're
interest,
owned,
not really.
even if they're owned by the same company, I don't really have any interest in having $2 stores, no matter how much variety we add. I'm not crazy about the idea.
I agree. It seems like Family Dollar struggles with trying to even have employees.
Yeah.
Like they do.
This is like, we're just adding double headaches.
I mean, it changes, you get to those stores, then it really would start changing the town for what other people would want to do.
Yeah.
So, I think that's good enough for me. I'm not gonna ask if you're interested in a Walmart. I'm just kidding.
So In-N-Out Burger, could you bring them?
Smash burger.
Even now, it actually brings so much.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I've never been there either.
Oh,
I'll tell you what's good, I used to work there.
Just imagine the roundabout with everybody back up. going
yeah.
through it.
let's forget that.
they would have to prove.
Another off ramp.
So, that brings us to the Strauss Park. Refresh project. Okay.
Oh, a while back, you asked me to look into the feasibility of expanding the parking lot for Strauss Park. You know, come up with some numbers and see how many spaces we can get and so forth. And I've done that. There's a report here. Summary level, it's feasible to increase the park and gain not only 5 to 6 spaces, depending if you want to count the space that exists along the apartment building right now that's being used by the tenants there as that 6th space, which we get regardless of whether we make the parking lot bigger or not. The big thing is it requires removing the tree. It's been stated that the tree is getting on in years, and exhibits some evidence of beetle kill. That is anecdotal type of evidence. One of the suggestions made by, and I did bring this both to the Parks and Rec and the Business Promotions Commissions in the last week, and they both are unanimously in favor of moving forward with getting rid of the tree and making the parking lot bigger because of the, the additional spaces that would be added. The cost to prep the area, which is remove the tree, remove an amount of dirt and rebuild the rock wall so that it, you don't cave in Fifth Street, is about $30,000. That'd be the first step. And then depending on what option we decide on for paving that area, which it could be basically what you have now with maybe some additional gravel or crushed stone put on the top, that'd be the minimal cost. That would be somewhere in the order for a little bit of difference between layout A and B, and that's in the report, but if we go with the assumption we'll enlarge the space, it'd be about 10,000 to just do the, I take that, it'd be about 17,000 to do the gravel surface, because you still have to do a subsurface preparation first, and that's fixed no matter what kind of final paving you put on. If you go to the next level, which we've talked about in the past, the permeable paving, which is the grid, plastic grid type thing that gets filled with rock, provides good water retention and percolation into the soil. That will put the price up to about $35,000 for that, the paving. And if we did asphalt, it'd be about in the same ballpark, 36,000. So leave it as it is, and you're talking 16. I'm sorry, I should have added, and to do a more permanent paving would be about 45 because of the $10,000 addition. So right now, we don't have any of this budgeted. we could look at, where a budget is tight, we could look at, doing making the extra spaces this year, and that'd be cost us around 30,000, and then next year or sometime in the future, go ahead and deal with the paving. I did talk to Mary for about 5 minutes earlier today. We will need to get together and talk about what kind of budget is available. What's been approved today is the $250,000 from the CDOT grant, plus the $56,000 in matching funds that we carried over. So we have a working budget right now of 306. You'll hear in the next session's report that that will not be enough to do the stuff we have planned for Strauss Park, which doesn't include this anyway. So we're gonna need to look at the budget, figure out what we want to do. There may be more money available. She thought there was over 100,000, so we'll see where that goes. But I guess the decision here is, do we want to move forward? Now is definitely the time to, if we're gonna expand that parking lot, this is the opportunity to do it, since we're working there anyway, and, once the tree, if we wait 5 years, and if we did something else in the parking lot, we just mess it all up, taking the tree down, so having the time to do that. The comments of note, and that's attached to your packet as well, from the Parks and Rec and Business Promotions. They made a suggestion, if we take the tree down, we ought to replace it in lost caliper inches of every tree of an equal number. I'm guessing the trunk of that tree is, 12, 18 inches diameter, something like that. So that, that's a significant cost of additional evergreens. I'm not sure where you put them, but the town could make a long-term commitment to do something like that, if that makes people happy. The other thing, is that there is concern, and I share the concern that would we be making the situation, we have a water, and it's a historic water drainage situation in that parking lot. The crux of the problem is the northeast corner of our property, which is where that access road goes in behind the other buildings. That's the low spot. And the door threshold at the entrance to the apartment door is roughly 3/4 of an inch above the drain line on the street. That's not the paving level, that's the actual, the belly of the gutter that goes down the street. So the gutter on the street at the far corner by where the monument is, that's what's going to dictate elevations. 3/4 of an inch drop over 100 feet, really not enough drainage. We need to get higher. I've talked to the owner, Rick has talked to the owner. The best solution for that area is to put a driveway. And whether or not that would be something that the town would get into or not, I mean, that I think needs to be determined. There was some concern, would we have some legal responsibility or liability if we do something with the drainage in that parking lot? I don't know. I mean, that's a jury question. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not terribly concerned. We'll slope the parking lot this way, toward the drainage culvert, or not culvert, but the drainage pan that we put in along the new sidewalk. But I see us actually building out that northeast corner by maybe 6 inches, so we can get enough elevation to drain our property out to the street. But that only makes the whole, where the entrance to the building is worse. And then, it's compounded by the fact that he's got his gutters draining into that hole. So not only does he get whatever might come from the parking lot, he's taking everything off his roof and putting it down the ground there as well. So that's something we'll need to look at, I guess, and find out what kind of standing we have to deal with that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Jerry, off the top of your head.
You know, town's immune from most court actions, you know, disciplinary actions, except for a list of things where you can be sued. It's not that you're liable, you just be sued for it if you're negligent. And one of those is a dangerous condition in a public facility.
Yeah.
And you see these cases come up where, you know, in the sidewalk, there was a post that got sawed off, only it, you know, it stuck about the sidewalk for a couple of people for dangerous condition in public facility. But if we're making the condition better, not worse, that's good. And even if it's declared to be something you can sue for, you still have to, it has to show that you were negligent in that, and if we're making it better. I think that's pretty good. Plus we can get a source of defense insurance to cover us for this client. That's a long way of saying I wouldn't let liability concerns drive whether you do it or not, because on balance, either it'll be no worse or possibly better within the public space.
Right, and
That's-
then with the Georgetown property.
Yeah.
Lines, it'll be better. I mean, that's,
Yeah, I wouldn't let liability stand in the way. In fact, it shouldn't stand in the way, making it slightly less dangerous. So there's no concern.
yeah, and I would want to verify, I think I've got I don't know what the dimensions were, like a 12-foot or so width on the access way back into the, behind those buildings. I'd want to check with, fire department, make sure that that's, I mean, that's what they've got now, so it should be okay, but.
Yeah, the liability is not the driver for the board's decision. You're free to use other consideration.
So is the roof drainage from that apartment building remaining on that building's property, or is it also on ours?
It is being transferred to ours. He did halfway take the suggestion to put a dry well in. He dug a hole and stuck a sump pump in it.
Okay.
And when it rains, it, you know, he pumps it out of that hole onto our parking.
Okay.
Yeah, it is coming on our property.
Should you be going out on his property line onto the street? I mean, I say this is run.
You'd have to redo the entire drainage system on the roof.
Well, if he had a sump and just sump it to the,
Yeah, if you put it, well, or if you, to me, it'd be a whole lot cheaper to just put a dry well.
yeah, and go to the street or
I
something.
mean, and I told them the cost for a dry well, because we just put 4 of them in Sprouts Park, it's about $5,000 a piece. Or $5,000 a hole, so. And the time to do it would be now. I wouldn't mind, you know, if he wants to pay for it, go ahead and, you know, we'll get it done when we get the excavation work done.
On his property.
It would be. No, it would actually be, I would be. Somewhere close, probably part on his and part on ours. His property line, or our property line runs right down the outside of his deck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's
Is
virtually,
there a foot to spare? Or not that much?
maybe not even that,
Zero lot line.
Yeah.
it's right on the lot, it's pretty much right on the lot line, so. The dry well would be probably under where we would put that 16th parking space.
I would recommend having it on his property in any way possible, so it's his liability to maintain.
Well, I'm not sure where, he possibly could do it behind, between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Between the, you know, the buildings that are about 6th Street and then his apartment building, that alleyway and behind there is space basically on the other side of that, pine tree.
What's that triangle here? Is that his spot here?
No, that's ours.
That's ours. There's an opinion expressed at BPC that if we were to make some of these engineering changes, that we might be responsible for some of his, you know, that what our work is obviously impacting, and that then we might be responsible for some of the impact on his property. just sharing the opinion. It wasn't mine, I don't know enough about it. So, but that would be something that would go to you and our
Yeah,
planning people and all that.
laws, you can't increase the natural drainage from your property to an adjacent property more than what was historic.
Yeah, I don't see that being, the issue would be probably more concerned with any impact on foundation. And I don't know, I'm thinking we'll be probably about 3 feet off of the property line, because we need to rebuild that wall, and it's about 4.5 feet up at the Fifth Street corner, and then it tapers down to about 2 feet or so, down by halfway down, about where the end of that, you know, that mound is, about the other side of the tree. I purposely didn't, take the wall all the way back. We wanted to leave a little bit of space there to basically, so we don't disturb the any of the earth right up near the foundation. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. We had that concern, especially with the K&A building, when we did that, and we addressed that in the work that was done. Is the purple right away for the K&A building? Yeah, that's the aisleway that gets you behind those buildings. And that's where the tenants are. All two of them, there's usually get about 2 cars back in there, 2 or 3. Our property line goes from Fifth Street all the way to the back. You know where the old bread oven used to be? Back to that, basically the light pole, the new light pole that we put in, that's kind of at the corner of our property. Okay. So it's, that whole area back there. So they should really be leaving it open as access, not parking. Yeah, that's why there's only that one space, we couldn't come around, we need to leave access for getting in there, so.
Okay.
I have a question. Since it's an improvement, can ARPA funds be used to help to pay the cost of the parking lot?
I was thinking that too. I was wondering if there's something that really falls outside of the scope or the parameters of our parks money, if those funds could, because it's obviously a benefit to the downtown district.
Businesses.
Right, the foundations of the, buildings,
Drainage too.
it's infrastructure, yeah, it's stormwater drainage.
Yeah, I mean,
Because a lot of stuff came off that list, and I don't know if that created $30,000 worth of space, but I'm sure there was some.
I like losing the tree now, and I like getting the parking lot at least ready for, I have a preference towards the hard surface because of the dust blowing around and whatnot. I think it'd be easier to maintain.
Makes it more desirable in that neighborhood too, for the restaurants, the outside dining, the use that we have in the park that we don't have.
You can actually mark the spaces, so it's not raining.
That's what
Oh, yeah.
you could mark the spaces with the gravel pave as well, but it's not as permanent.
But we would get more use out of all the parking spaces if we had that page.
And dust control has
And
been
then-
an issue with that.
And that could open up that parking lot, that surface to additional activities too, if it was
Right.
a harder surface.
Another thing.
No, I already have a plan.
I put down, it is capital and it deals with a lot of things.
Go ahead.
So maybe later we
Say
can
back
talk
to the
to.
drainage thing, no, I still don't like the idea of trying to fix his issue with the drainage. So what happens if we partially, so we put on partially on the parking lot and on his property? But if you have anything catastrophic that happens, is that gonna give us, are we gonna be liable for that?
None of the parking would be on his property.
Rob, hold on. We had to borrow some
None of the
stuff.
drainage would be on his property. We would drain.
When I was talking about what he had, so with his drainage, if we got an issue with him, I think he should be more he should be more liable for his own drainage and what he does with that.
And I agree, you and I are on the same page. I hear, I mean, in my mind, it's his drainage problem that hasn't been addressed. It's not, and it's not being caused, even though that's kind of the way this came to us, that it was being caused by the parking lot, which is not true.
No, but if we slope bars like you're talking about, then it will actually be, that will actually help him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I like what you.
Well,
We're not gonna be.
it would only help him if he puts a pump in and pumps it into the parking.
Well, yeah, now.
I would like him not to do that.
I would like you not to do that.
And dance conditions by him pumping, and he needs to get to the street, he has street access somewhere, he's up against the street, he should just figure out how to get up there on his own property.
We want to.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at it, Bob.
Encroachments and everything else.
You say more of his gutters and draining that way, I mean, that cost alone would have to be less than the alternative of what you're mentioning.
You can catch roof gutters high
Yeah,
and drain them out too, you don't have to let them go all the way to drain them, you can catch them up and bring them across.
there's a lot, I haven't looked at that.
Well, I mean, he's got to think, that the area underneath his deck is already below the level of the parking lot. And then to make it worse, the gutters are drained into that low spot. And the low spot is gonna be at the back of his property where things drain to now because of just the pitch down. So you could definitely rework the gutters and the drains to go out to Fifth Street. I mean, I don't know what all would be involved, but I mean, that to me would be a feasible thing to do. You're still gonna have whatever surface drainage you get off of the deck and just the, whatever comes out the side of the house and so forth, that's gonna collect in that low spot.
That could be the dry well on his
And
property.
yeah, and the dry, I mean, put a dry well right underneath your, where you come out that door. And collect it, just put it into the ground.
I mean, 'cause to me, it's still a huge improvement, if he would work his own gutters, and do the drywall, to the parking lot. I'm sure that's gonna help keep down those avenues as much, it's not a low spot anymore. But I love the idea of this.
Do we have to get some professional to take a look at that tree? Because I know that was a big deal when we took out the first tree.
Is it a lodgepole?
I think it's a spruce of some sort.
It looks rough. It's
Kind of rough,
It's been knocked a few
It's
times.
one of those small.
we have the tree police coming out later this week for another tree, maybe we can, because that was a suggestion. Right, is to have it checked.
Didn't
Have it checked.
Kevin say that it was?
Kevin said that
Well,
it
let's
was
keep that, he's not,
got, beetles in it and so if it's got, starting to get a beetle infestation, it's not long.
Let's start one sense.
Firework.
no, it doesn't. Having land tree service take a look at it isn't gonna be cost prohibitive. It'll also calm the general public when
Yes.
they learn that the tree needs to go.
You're going with that. I like, you're going with that.
That's good.
Sure, but
It
it is, it makes it simple.
Yes.
Let's make it like a cherry tree in Washington DC and.
Get rid of it.
So. The question came up just as you were
Thanks,
heading
Bob.
down the stairs, Gary, whether since this, the expansion of this, parking lot will top our funding out of its budget,
Right,
if
you could use our.
ARPA funds would be on.
Parking lot's capital, so.
Okay,
Yeah, sweet, man.
okay. Yeah. Love it. Okay, anything else you wanna bring to us
I'm
that's,
gonna give you an update on Stroud Park along with, we've got a couple of
do you wanna save that for the regular meeting?
that's fine, I mean, this whole meeting is public, right? So,
It is, but at 6, which is rolling right now,
okay. we can go to the next meeting, that's fine.
yeah, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and close out our work session then. And, call to order our regular meeting, which is Board of Selectmen meeting for the town of Georgetown. It is Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, 6 p.m. And let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, I am Renee Kelsey, Police Judge, Rob Connell.
Here.
Amanda Cooper is not with us tonight. John Jennings.
Here.
Dwayne Wizinski.
Here.
Mary Smith.
Here,
Rick Barrows.
Here.
Thank you. Agenda approval. We did have an executive session added to the previous agenda. Yes,
No,
and that, executive session is to receive legal advice and instruct negotiators concerning potential acquisition of real property adjacent to the Big Horn project. So, anything else to add?
I move to accept the agenda, the amended agenda. For
Second.
tonight.
Okay. Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest related to the business of the town that is not already on the agenda. Anybody here for audience business? Okay, seeing none. Anybody online? All right. Before we move on, let me check. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next, we have the payables. And dates on these payables are from March 22nd to April 4th, 2024. Any questions or comments on the payable?
Come on, Rob.
Motion for the tables from March 22nd, 2024 to April 4th, 2024. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from our regular meeting. Last meeting was on March 26th, 2024.
I sent in an addition to Jen to include under the discussion items, the childcare. That I had commented that as a board, we haven't discussed the criteria of how we're going to use our funding that falls into the Workforce Commission budget. And then also I just made a in the annual sales tax report paragraph to clarify people.
Okay. I gave her a few corrections or revisions. I can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure. So my revisions, corrections start on page 4. Under the ARPA funds section, the town has received the money. It's not a question of waiting for it. Under the next paragraph, the Clear Creek Fire Authority updates, the very last sentence. It should, the end of it should read, and Clear Creek Fire Authority will meet prior to the next public meeting to discuss funding options. Then on the next page, second paragraph from the bottom, what Amanda had looked up and provided us a link to was on how the short-term rental owners can opt out of having Airbnb collect the taxes. And then on page 6, under the Assistant Town Administrator's report under the strengths. Instead of reading Road and Bridge did a good job keeping the streets closed, it should be open. And then under the weaknesses towards the bottom of that section, the snow was coming down, just drop the S. And at the very last sentence in that weaknesses section, if we could add the word, requests, after the word reimbursement. And that's all I have. So. Anything else?
I move to accept
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended, dated March 26, 2024.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
He's back.
He's back.
Motion passes.
We missed you last time, Rob, you know?
Yes, we did.
This is really great.
So, first item on our, actual business agenda is the Strauss Park Refresh Project Phase 4. Concrete flatwork quote not to exceed $51,154.
So do you want to take this?
Yeah, that is the quote to finish up all the concrete flat work in the park, this year. Updated from telling they did the work last year, we were satisfied with their work and the prices were in line with, pretty much in line with what they charged last year, for similar work, so. They are ready to go. I've asked them to prioritize pouring the wall, the planter enclosure at the corner of northeast corner of the parking lot next to K&A, where the gas meter is. And the floor for the additional concession area and the walkway through the passageway to the parking lot. Get those done, that way we have, really solid benchmarks to line our flagstone up to, and it gets that out of the way, so they're not traipsing over newly placed flagstone. They said they could probably get that completed by the end of April. Assuming we don't get buried. I built the form for that. My grandson is gonna help me put it out there tomorrow. It's in the back of my truck. For the corner thing, we were able to reuse some of the scrap from previous work in the park, and buy a few new 2x4s. But that's, we'll be ready to go for that. And we're gonna embed a conduit so we can run an electric line and put an outlet on the counter for people to plug in, the counter if they need to. So I think my recommendation is to go ahead with that. You don't have to pay it until they'll invoices when each task is completed. So this is just an approval to move forward with them, and we've got the price locked in.
So the pans and the handicap ramp and all that will kind of be down the line, especially in light of what we were just talking about with the parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to focus on getting stuff done inside the park first, and then, we'll move to the parking lot.
Any other questions?
I move to approve the quote from Toma Construction Services Incorporated for the concrete work for Strauss Park not to exceed $51,154.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Another Strauss Park item. This is for a contract with Neil Lundstrom for the flagstone.
And I can explain that as well. I asked Luxfer to update their proposal from last year. And, again, once I got it, I went back to them and said, can you split a few items out that we can treat as options and decide when or if we want to do that. So what I've done is concentrated on getting the flagstone put in, that's the big ticket item. The flagstone's here, we get the edging put in for all the planters and where the grass goes. We get the soil brought in for creating the planters in the turf area. We go ahead and do actually plan on having them do the plantings, which they've included, I think it's like 67, shrubs, 5 trees, and like 61, 1 gallon, I don't know, if it's 1 gallon, 1 quart, number 1 range. Mainly a bunch of column coral places, what they're proposing. So the idea is get the hardscape in the park, get the plantings all set up to go. Get all that in as quickly as we can. Hopefully that we can get all that done before the 4th of July. That's kind of the target I give people. It may or may not be possible, but the sooner we get started, the sooner we get done. I've asked them to hold off. I said we would hold off authorizing the boulders in the irrigation system. The boulders I thought was expensive. In talking with them more, it's probably not all that unreasonable. I was thinking just the boulders for the seawall, but there's probably about 20 boulders altogether that go in various parts of the plantings. So, that's something that I think the town could do with the backhoe, set them. Or if we have Banky there, if we wind up doing the digging with his little machine, that's ideal for replacing them. So I wanted to kind of hold off on that and decide what's the most effective way of doing that. I thought the price for the irrigation system was a lot, and it'll come to Rick probably later this week. I'm looking into the details on how we might reduce that. It's a little over $20,000 to put the irrigation system in. I think we can do it for probably close to half that. With the town buying the materials directly and using some local labor to do some of the installation work, and using me to do some of the plumbing work inside the building.
Do you know Kevin used to put those in? He used to.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna, that's another option I want to talk to Rick about. Is this something that, I mean, Kevin does have a real job.
Right, but I'm saying,
But I mean, yeah, I want to make sure when we select materials that it's compatible with what he's used to using elsewhere. I've already kind of mentioned this to Kevin. So he and I we were supposed to get together for lunch and talk about this, but that hasn't happened yet. So I'm kind of holding off on that. But the immediate thing that I would want to get going on really soon is getting the trunk lines underground between the different planter areas so that we can lay flagstone. So that's kind of the plan on that. I plan to put in sleeves where all the trunk lines for the drip irrigation and the sprinkler irrigation goes underneath the flagstone, so that in the future, if a line breaks or something, we can pull it out without having to go ahead and pull up the lines.
When it breaks.
When
it breaks.
When, well, I'm hoping to go with, plan to go with a poly type stuff rather than PVC. Because it will withstand freeze thaw a whole lot better, and it's continuous, there's no joints. Good idea though. So I'm kind of redesigning and I moved all the control valves and wiring and everything inside the utility room that we're building inside the shelter, so that all of it will be in a secure, closed area. That will have heat. But I mean, we'd obviously shut all that down, pull it out in the winter time. Trying to make it as maintenance-free a system as possible.
So, any other questions? Okay. Are the folks at Neil's Lunsford aware that that park will be pretty much overrun at, for the slacker? Short.
Yes, in the in the RFP that I sent to everybody, including the concrete guy, there's a whole list of dates when we want the park available, based on what, Jess gave you earlier this year.
Okay.
And, we got an extra weekend because we're not doing the bake sale. I'm disappointed.
All right. So, there's a recommended motion in the packet.
I'll move to approve the quote, from Neil Lunsford to purchase the
Not
flagstone.
to purchase the Blackstone, we already purchased it.
Yeah, I thought we did, that's right.
No, it's
There's a lot more.
this is the hard, for them to do hardscape installation work.
To install.
Yeah, they're just installing. though.
Yeah, installation of the flagstone and plants and
Correct,
that.
right.
So it's the quote from Neil Lunsford to install the flagstone materials for the Strauss Park. Not to exceed $1,222,480.48.
Perfect. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Why would be?
Motion passes.
You gotta come more often so you stay, you know.
Practice, dude.
Okay, so our third item here is planning commission appointments of Chris Sanford and Georgia Copid from alternate members to regular members. Did you wanna, or Kasia maybe? I don't know.
Do you want to do that?
Do you wanna talk about anything that we talked about today?
Go ahead.
It was mentioned to us by our utilities director, Ryan Zabel, that there, no, okay, never mind.
May I ask if these are the two people that were originally slated to come in from the
Yes.
alternate? Okay.
That was in the motion.
So we're just being consistent with what you guys already had.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you guys, anybody from planning commission have any?
Both of us are here to represent them. They were here the last meeting, but somehow got left off the agenda. Not a big deal. That's not an issue. So we're just here to represent them if we need to be here.
Okay, okay. Well, we're glad they're willing to step up from alternate to full, so. Okay,
I move to appoint Chris Sanford and Georgia Colford from alternate members to regular members to fill the vacancies on the planning commission.
moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Motion passes. Item number 4 is Business Promotion Commission appointment of Gary Haynes from alternate member to regular member.
Sure, I move to, do you want me to talk about it first?
If you want.
So Amanda obviously is now board of selectmen, and so she was also on business promotions, so she resigned from business promotions because two of us obviously can't be. I'm currently the rep. Told her that she can more than happy
Yeah, that'd be
to have
sad.
it. I know, wouldn't it? But anyway, so I move to appoint Gary Haynes from alternate member to regular member to fill the vacant seat on the business promotion commission.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. Motion passes.
A sad, sad day.
Number 5 is ordinance number 4, series 2024. This is first reading, amendment to short-term rental regulation.
I will let Jerry.
We had a conversation about this at your last meeting. And, what this, ordinance does is focuses the collection obligation for one, pardon me, exclusively on the property, with one exception, allowing the property owner to use, as described here, a management company which has authority to locally manage the property. I felt that was an appropriate, exception. But it, And it repeats itself a little bit, mostly to have kind of belt and suspenders around the idea of, okay, well, I've got this person managing, or I'm going, working through three different LLCs and they're all owners, or, you know, we felt it was important to say it in a couple of different ways to address the issue that was raised in the last meeting. So there it is. I think, it might well be that, you might, just from the staff level, want to circulate a little bit to the, operators and maybe. I'd rather hear concerns they have in terms of how it's you know, before it's enacted than after. And I think I'd recommend that. That's more of a sort of a policy call for the board. But that's really what's going on here is 2 or 3 different ways of saying you've got to collect it yourself and remit on a monthly basis to the town. Mary, what have I missed in the report?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I mean, it won't solve the problem, but it certainly, I think, will help the cause. Changes, so.
And one question I guess I do have is, I put in brackets, sales and lodging tax. Probably just lodging, am I right?
Just lodging, yes.
Okay. You see that from to the sales and language. Brackets around the management company, local authority would come out, that we keep the language, that at first I've written that as kind of an alternative. But I do think that there will be some short-term rental operators who told them, have a management company, you know, our short-term rental ordinance requires them to have a management company that can respond to more than 45 minutes. So if they could rely on the company they may well want, which is, I think, in our interest. So.
I'd like to make sure, and I don't know if it's appropriate in this ordinance or just in operating procedures, that all of the online platforms and management companies that have anything to do with the short-term rentals have business licenses to operate in the town of Georgetown. I think that's possibly an issue. And I don't know if it belongs in the ordinance or not. I mean, I don't know if that particular point belongs in the ordinance, but also under in the form that's created, or does it need to be specifically stated in the ordinance under section B? For each owner of short-term rentals shall file a monthly report on the form provided by the town, whether the form includes it or whether we say it. And like, how many nights, and I use Airbnb and it's this amount, you know, or I use how many nights and it's VRBO, or, you know, whatever the companies are, so that it's easier tracking for you. I don't know if it can just be handled on the form, but because we've had so many issues with it, perhaps it might be best if we highlighted it in the actual ordinance. Your call.
It's completely up to you.
It's gonna make it easier for tracking. I think that's a big deal with regard to this, because some of them do and some of them don't. And you ought to know which one's which.
Well, and even though the responsibility now is falling on the property owners to do the filing, I think it's gonna make it easier for tracking. If we know 5 of them were booked through so-and-so, 2 of them, you know, whatever, and who they were. Because that, and then again, that falls back into, then we can follow up if all these online platforms have business licenses to operate and to be providing that service to our short-term rental owners. Because if all of a sudden one is coming up and Jen checks and she's like, we don't have a business license for this, who the heck are you? You know, so it's just kind of a redundancy that's to our operating benefit.
Yeah, I mean, kind of right. If you do business as a town, you're supposed to have a business license as a town, correct, Jim?
Yes.
So I mean, I think about that with the subcontractors, they have to have a license, so why shouldn't everybody have to have that? I mean, it brings in a few more dollars for the town too, that should have already been in place and it's easier to track.
But it's also one more way that we can keep, you know,
The books.
right, well, and then if they're not complying, we could pull their license.
Some sort of document.
Yeah,
What about, here's another, things have a way of changing, they often do. You know, what we say, you know, players today might be a whole different set of players down the road. Maybe there ought to be a provision for taking an inventory of what platforms people are using.
Right,
But that platform, they should still have a license with the town, isn't there?
I would think so.
So if you do, then you track that too.
I mean, all your,
Right.
like you say, all your subs need them.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. That's what brought that to my attention. I'm like, yeah, it's like they're not the happiest about it, but just because they work with so many different towns. But yeah, I think that's awesome.
And they don't need one for each property. They just need one to operate into town. So they could be handling 20 short-term rentals and they only need one license. But then we know who's servicing our owners. And,
We ought to know their policy on reimbursement.
so those are my two suggestions.
You know, you've got a couple choices. In my opinion, the form can include that, and it can have that option. We could add to the ordinance, I understand the desire to have more profile. To get added to the ordinance, a new number 3 and probably renumber 4, but say something like, let's see, continuing the following, and probably you'd add, the, number of, or if rooms are booked through, or if the SDR is booked through an online platform, identify that platform. And I'm not sure, at some point, you know, more detail, if the goal is to say, who are you working with? I'm not sure you need to say, identify the platform and tell me how many nights and which night. And, you know, why, while it's cool information, if the goal is, we just want to know what platform they're using so that we can determine if there's a business. I would stop there only because, you know, you're laying a record keeping obligation on the STR owners. And you require them to cough up that information, but is it information you're gonna use or really need? I mean, I'd be inclined to keep it simple and say if booked through an online platform or platforms identify the same. Would that do it?
You're thinking ahead, spinning ahead towards auditing and how they're not
Well,
accountable.
and I am, you know, to know the breakdown of how many nights under each platform would be beneficial when there's extra time to go through 1 month and say it's home away, and everybody that claims they used home away, I should be able to back into the number that home away paid for that month. I mean, it could be very beneficial.
But we're
But-
saying home away can't pay for that. I'm saying.
No, but I'm saying sales tax just in general, or our short-term rentals not being on. Do you see what I'm saying?
It'll show, she'll be able to compare, right, it'll compare what the sales tax is coming in from the state. And it'll confirm then the tax that we're getting, the lodging tax that we're self-collecting.
Well, that and just even the sales tax, it kind of holds them to a standard where we can cross-reference any of this at any given time for any given month.
So I'd like to see it in the ordinance, and I think it should be online or third-party platforms. Because right now, yes, it's online, but who knows what the wording is gonna change to or whatever, or if someone walks into a real estate office and they're the third-party platform and they sign up for that short-term rental. So, just trying to be all-encompassing.
I mean, it's not something that we would use every day, but
But it's checks and balances.
it's checks and balances like, oh, okay, it's been 3 months. Oh, I have an extra day. Let me calculate this out and back check it. You know? And then you kind of know, you can track down where the missing piece is. To some degree.
And so then, even put that information that's required, in the ordinance, so that as the forms change and people change, we know historically, because it's spelled out in our ordinance, there was a reason why we were asking for that information, and it doesn't have to be just shared verbally oh, why did he ask this, you know? I mean,
Right.
there was value,
Cross-reference.
yeah.
Okay, so you could add, something to say, if booking through online or third-party platforms, identify which platforms and number of nights booked through each.
Online and
That
third
got
party.
it, or did we add it?
Did you say online and third party platforms?
Yes,
Okay,
we did.
okay, sorry. Sure.
Anything more?
I think you had a good idea that we should just not adopt it on first reading. I think you need to get it out to those folks so they have a good understanding and have a chance to voice their concerns.
Well, you could do first reading, obviously, you go to a second reading,
Right.
you could,
And
I mean,
then,
I'll clean this up, it can be the version you adopt on first reading, and then that version can be shared out to the STR owners, and here's, along with the information on when it's gonna come up on second reading.
Do we need to address the business licenses in the ordinance, or is that just under our regular operating procedures?
I think it would, we've got a code section.
Okay.
And this is the town, you got it.
Okay,
And I understand that the report that we did here may be an investigative tool for Mary to determine that there's people in business that, and we learned that people are doing business here without a business license in various ways. Most of you are one of them, but you already pretty clearly require a business license to do business in town. So I don't think you need to.
What is the form of like the data file? Is it easy to read or is it easy to fill out?
very simple, very basic right now. I mean, this will add a little bit to it, but
I
it's
was just wondering if that was, you know, if they were gonna be,
6 lines.
okay.
It's online too, if you wanna look it up under lodging tax registry or reporting.
Because when the rubber meets the road is how willing they're willing to be, you know, disclosed. I thought making it easier or making it easier or keeping it easy.
Well, I mean, if they're doing their due diligence in reporting to us, it should be very simple because they have to look and say, oh, with Airbnb, I had this much income. With VRBO, I had this much, I mean, this many nights. They have to look at it anyway.
Got it.
So,
So I have a question. What are the ramifications if we reach out to these third-party platforms, or if the homeowner, you know, licensee reaches out and they don't comply? Like they don't fill out a business license?
why are we allowing them to operate?
Well, yeah, because everybody you have to.
Shut them down.
This is your violation of the code.
Okay.
I would bet that in every, sorry, go ahead, Rick. No, I would bet in most every area that they do. That there, in most every town asks for a business license. You have to, correct? I mean, I know along construction, everybody does, because that's all the subs, they have business license in every town they work with.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not pushing back on that. I think you're correct. It's just, this is a weird gray area of getting a third party because I'm just preparing for them to push back and say, well, we have a clause that says you don't have to do that. And, I'm just trying to think of like, how do we fight that or put it in the code saying, sorry, our ordinance says you have to do that.
So we can look at that between this reading and second reading in case it's an issue? Or
Yeah.
refer back to our business
I'd be
license?
inclined to create the solution for the problem when we know what the problem is a little better. You know, I mean, otherwise we're sort of guessing at a solution, you know, at some point, you know, I need to be reactive.
Yeah.
What do we do now in some, if
We harass them until they.
Is that the right word, Ron?
They do, we encourage them a lot, and they end up paying.
So so maybe we need to look at our own ordinance to see if there's some kind of a, you know, you've got X amount of days to do it, because obviously, you know, and then we can threaten them to shut them down or whatever.
Yeah, it's just a strange one since we've been doing short-term rentals for a long time. And we've never reached out to them and said, oh, you haven't paid your.
I mean, I guess why I didn't was because of that incidental presence part of the law, and so.
So I move to approve ordinance number 4, series 2024 as amended on the first reading.
I'll second it.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 4, series 2024 on first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Question,
Sure can.
did we approve that grader, kit, repair kit? The grades.
We approved it, but we've not moved forward because we were waiting on the details from Jerry, if this was a capital expense that could be what we.
Well, that was my next question, I wondered if we were brought here to the fall.
Well,
We worked through
Yeah.
the study session, there was a discussion about that. Which was medication.
yep.
That's,
Okay, next we've got the quote from Wagner for a skid steer not to exceed $68,857.99.
Okay, so this is the one that we discussed last time. It was the one that came with a warranty. Has no, used miles or anything like that on it. It's the one that, after discussing about how we would use it, they were the ones that recommended that this, the 262 D3 was ideal for a municipality our size. I did reach out today just to confirm you still have it, and they said, yes, we actually held it for you. And, so I think that this is what we decided. They're willing to, they're actually the one that they have reserved is a little bit nicer than what they sent the specs to. Instead of a plexiglass window, it's actually glass. And it has a couple other things, but they're gonna keep out of the flex. So I thought that was generous.
It's Gorilla Glass, so that it doesn't break when.
Yeah.
stuff is like- No.
My Jeep has great glass in it, still broke. But, anyways, I do have all the details on here of what this is. And I am excited to hear that Jerry can confirm that we can move forward with that through all funds. I did wanna, after this, I did wanna address some of the other questions you had from last time when we discussed on the list of road and bridge equipment, snow plows, and the sander. I wanted to address that when you guys want ready to, because there were questions that you tasked me to, and I feel like it does tie into this. Because it sounded like we felt comfortable moving forward with ARPA funds to get these things done, but I do have some answers for that. So,
Okay, why don't we address that in your administrator's report? So sticking to topic, we've got this quote. Any questions about the quote? Piece of equipment? Okay. There is the recommended motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the quote from Wagner Cat to purchase the 2024 Cat 262 D3 skid steer loader for an amount not to exceed $68,857.99.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. So, first on our staff items is acting marshal's report. Yes.
I'm not sure where to stand.
Report's kind of lengthy this time. I hope everyone had a chance to read it. I'll kind of summarize each paragraph. Evidence products was filling up. So it was a good time, it's a good time of year to kind of go through all the cases with the DA's office and clear out some of that, which we did. Made a little more room for this upcoming summer. Due to Ms. Hill's continued efforts in supporting the police department and increased proficiency in her duties, I've been able to engage in a little more traffic enforcement over the course of the week, resulting in several citations, including commercial motor vehicle enforcement, which addresses to some degree the Jake brake problem. One of the traffic stops resulted in the location of a stolen vehicle in the parking lot of the bait barn. And so I noticed there's quite a few what appears to be abandoned vehicles, vehicles with flat tires, vehicles with no plates, expired plates, parked in their various parking lots. So I did send a letter to the management company to let them know that they need to address the problem, or they're gonna end up getting, summons to court. I can't identify who owns all these vehicles, are they still there? Do they just bring the vehicle in, drop it, in hopes it would be a better mode of transportation for them, and it's now just rotten? So, I've done that to address the problem, and hopefully that will, until I can get, additional assistance, such as code enforcement, another officer, who can address these on a more regular basis. I had a hiccup with E4, it stopped formatting cases. When I import cases from Jeffcom, it formatted it completely different, so I've got to work order in to correct that. Matilda and I have been working on the records policy. And so the records policy is gonna include sealing, expunging of records, NIVERS data entry, sex offender registration, new employee admission, to evidence.com, maximum body worn camera policy, records retention and distribution. So that's gonna be an added section in our standard operating guidelines manual for the police department. And so hopefully here in the short future, we've ironed out all the issues. We've written it tailored it to the Georgetown Police Department, and she's just currently typing it up. So hopefully that will be implemented here in the near future. Due to the jury selection process, in anticipation of a lot of traffic, I made 6th Street a one-way. Sometimes when you manage the flow of traffic, you can avoid congestion, accidents, and it's really a risk management effort to enhance security. Yesterday, didn't see any problems at all. So I've discontinued that plan, and I'll readdress maybe the issue towards the end of the trial, when maybe there's another chance to enhance security.
Because you were prepared that it wasn't a problem.
Right, it's always better to be ahead of the curve, because once you identify a problem, you've done nothing to address it, and it's a problem. And you really can't correct it, or it takes a lot of effort. The last paragraph was just to impress upon the need for emergency response personnel employed by the town. Sometimes the ambulance has really been stressed out lately. One gets called up to Loveland, and the other one has to, if there's one here, then it has to go to Dumont or somewhere else to be a more centralized location. We had a medical emergency here on 6th and Taos, and it would have been a disaster. Had the ambulance and it was called, but I think it came from Dumont or somewhere. Fire department, same way. So it's just to kind of go over that incident, and just really to stress the need for, like law enforcement personnel, additional law enforcement personnel in the town. To kind of address issues that come up that, we don't, you can't ever plan for something like this. And I don't want to discuss it, because I don't want to use somebody else's traumatic event to promote myself or promote the department. It's just, the board should, understand there is a need for it. So, having read the report, does anybody have any questions specifically?
No, I appreciate the information that you bring us, because I think this really highlights to us in the community that we all want Georgetown to be this little utopia, and we aren't. And we need to prepare for it and to be able to provide our police services, that you're doing single-handedly right now, and I appreciate that. Does Jeff come now? Are they kind of in sync where you can be pulling out like monthly statistics as far as, how many calls for service that you're able to handle? How many times are we calling in the county because you do get a day off or an hour off once in a blue moon, kind of thing, and some of those breakdowns?
I will get with them. I have their CAD, but their CAD system is still kind of in the works. They just allowed me to have it so that I can keep track of call logs and things of that nature, until I can get the data terminal from Edgewater that'll go in the car that'll have their CAD system on it. And so right now, they're having issues with that. They're trying to iron out stuff. I can look up call logs, but I can't make it a wide range. I can't search a wide range, for example, a month. it brings up nothing, or they don't know why. But if I search the past 4 days, it'll bring up every call that we've had in town. So anyway, we're ironing those details out, and hopefully, once they get ironed out, then I can go from my terminal at the office and print out a list. But I'll get with them to see if they can print out, a call log, if they can do something different to print out a call log. I just know that these services that dispatch was performing for us, Jeffcom does not. And some of these extra duties that, like, I would request of them, they have to go through their supervision, chain of command to get permission to do it. I mean, to even, enter a stolen vehicle, they have to go get permission, and I'm like, because I can't do it, you know? We can't enter a stolen vehicle, but it needs to be done. So anyway, those are kind of obstacles and hurdles that we face with Jeffcom. And so hopefully, as time, progresses, we can iron them out. And then, Ms. Hill is still waiting for her OSN, and once she gets that, then she'll be able to do some of these duties. I don't know if she won't be able to do that, but, she'll be able to do some of the things that Jeffcom does for us, and maybe once that gets off their shoulders, then they can work with us for something like that.
I thought we said that, or that we thought that was only gonna take like 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, so it came back, when the sheriff's office sent her prints off, they used their ORI, and it has to be ours. So she just got an email yesterday to that effect. So I had to send the email to the CCIC coordinator, which is over at the sheriff's office, so he can correct that, resend off, and then,
Cause that'll help you ultimately if she can do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, she is going to training over at the sheriff's office for, some of these systems, and she is much more proficient in her duties. And so I think it's okay, because once she gets her OSN, some of the duties she'll be performing neighbors and things of that nature. It's gonna take a little more work. So if she's proficient in what she's doing now, then she'll be more able to, kind of digest the information that's gonna be thrown at her for neighbors, for packing warrants, getting criminal histories, driver histories for court. So anyway, I'm okay with the OSN issue right now, because she's really, performing her task, much better than maybe I thought would be at this stage of the game.
Well, and obviously that's not on either of you guys if the sheriff's office misrouted the,
Oh, of
or,
course.
misindicated the numbers and stuff like that, but.
And that'll be another, we can take that hurdle out of, once she becomes proficient with her OSN, and I can get her to become the CCIT coordinator, then everything, we become self-sufficient in that department, and we won't have to rely on the sheriff's office
Okay.
for these things, and these problems won't, longer.
Have you had much contact with the new sheriff and with that department working to try and coordinate? Cause I'm remembering a whole list of tasks that would still be needed, but weren't gonna be covered by Jeffcom. And this was prior to Matt Harris being hired. And
Right.
so it was the sheriff's department was supposed to be working with the towns to make sure that there was coverage, and if they were doing things that we weren't able to do, let us know. And I'm not sure that actually got carried through.
Well, and I've spoken to Sheriff Harris several times, and as well as Lieutenant of Patrol. And so what they've done is, if I'm not working and it's a minor issue, they will address it, they won't call me. If it's a major incident, then they'll call me. They normally have had one deputy on patrol during the day, 2 at night. And so, vice versa, I've been supporting them as well at night where I can. If I know that one is over here on the east side and one is coming over this side and they need cover, then I gladly get dressed and go out and cover them. So it's worked both ways. It's worked well so far. In fact, I think we've worked better in these past few weeks than the sheriff's office ever has before, you know, with the Georgetown Police Department. And so I'm real encouraged by that, and I think it's built a stronger bond between us and the sheriff's office.
Good,
Great.
good to hear. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your report.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Next we have Asia with the Assistant Town Administrator's update.
Hello, everyone. So as Jerry mentioned earlier, I'm working on HB 211110, which is the accessibility mandate. And right now, just an update, I have run our website and also the visitor website that BPC runs through CAG, which is the website that establishes the standards for accessibility, and their automated scanner for accessibility issues does put us at 100%. However, there are manual checks that are required by this House bill, so I am collecting bids to assess that. Our visitors website does need a little bit more work on that as far as the automated scans go. So for the two websites, again, I'm collecting bids from different people. Alliance, who works with SIPA, which is the State Internet Portal Authority. They are working with Alliant to provide us with software to do some of the compliance work ourselves. That's primarily making sure that all of the documents that are on our websites, PDFs primarily, are accessible to people. We currently have 1,800 PDFs on our website. It's, to get all of those remedied, it's a minimum of $5 per page to get those fixed. So we probably don't have it in our budget. Something that Wheat Ridge is doing is they're actually removing most of their documents from the website. Forms, obviously, we have to keep up, but things like minutes and past agendas, they are taking down, and those are available by request from the public, and then you can make them accessible as people need them. Something they mentioned to me was, you know, they did a web tracking thing on their website to see how many people were engaging with those kinds of documents, and it's really just town staff, it's not the public at all. So as long as we still have those accessible to people by request, then we're complying with those kinds of things. But we don't need to have them on the website per se, and it will cost us a lot of money and put us at risk if we decide not to remediate some of those documents, so something to keep in mind. Yes, and I will have 3 bids for you to review probably by the next meeting. Just so you know, the high end though is 16,000 to audit both websites, and also support us for 2 years in making sure that that gets fixed for both websites. For like less support, there's another website that has told me for manual audit to be 1,300 per website. But they don't do any kind of continuous support beyond that. So, Alliance, again, for people working with the Colorado SIPA, State Internet Portal Authority, they're the ones that are 16,000. So they're kind of the gold standard, I think, but also on the higher end. So it's really a matter, I think, of what kind of risk tolerance we have. You know, like, do we want to have continuous support so that we can make sure that our website is certified and accessible going forward, or do we want to remediate and then pray? So, or, you know, we have people looking at it like in staff, but not necessarily a contractor. So anyway, I'll have more information for you on that later. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay. BPC, I believe I mentioned to you before, has tasked me with looking at common consumption area ordinances. I spoke with Jerry today. Well, actually, let me go back a little bit. BPC meeting last Wednesday. We sort of talked about what we want that to look like. They'd like it to be really expansive and flexible, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. all the time. People are able to exit downtown businesses that have alcohol and walk around and go shopping, things like that. We talked about that being in the historic commercial and mixed use areas, and not putting up a ton of barriers, just signage basically, like no alcohol beyond this point. However, looking through the ordinances, Jerry and I identified a couple of issues, primarily that whenever you have people walking around with alcohol, you can't have vehicular traffic going through, it's pedestrian only. So far, we're researching that, we're seeing if that's a hard stop for us, but obviously our downtown area is not pedestrian only, so, as far as letting people walk around all the time with alcohol, that might not be possible, but it might be a thing where we close down 6th Street with the bollards that we've established, in more specific time periods. There's also a restriction in the Lakewood ordinances that prohibits a common consumption area being in any zone that allows for single-family dwellings, so the mixed-use area might not be possible, but the commercial area might still be, or it would be fine for an entertainment district. So anyway, those are just some issues that we identified. And so we're working on having an ordinance to, if we can sort of get to a place that we feel like you guys would be comfortable, BPC would be comfortable, we'll be giving that to you for first reading, but if there's any questions or comments you have on that as we're working on
And there are challenges and opportunities as usual, you know, but remembering that the statutes here, especially in the liquor arena, we have less ability to override them. You know, just because that's a sort of classic statewide concern, you know, some of the base level rules for alcohol. And while we've got some flexibility, one of the real obstacles is the barriers and how much we'll be able to address them. There are other of these locations that are just physically set up more easily to preclude vehicular traffic, and that, like another way to say it, lend themselves more to kind of a, you know, a quad at the university or whatever, where it's, you know, kind of contained. Our situation necessarily isn't that, you know, so we're trying to navigate that a little bit and figure out what is possible within the constraints. We don't have all the answers yet, but we're telling you those are the questions.
How can those things open up Minor Street and serve alcohol on the street?
Well, they block off the traffic.
No, they're allowed to drive through.
That's seasonal. In the summertime, I think they close it down completely.
Yes.
And that's when they have their.
One way, but I thought,
it. So
It was
they
one
have,
way in the winter.
they have a CODA, common outdoor dining area with specific hours. And in the hours that they allow for outdoor consumption of alcohol, they close the street off.
BPC wanted it rather wide. There you go.
And so that's as usual, there are these competing goals, and they sort of fight with each other, and you try to find a place where the circles of compromise and ability intersect, and we're working on that.
That's good.
Has, I presume you talked to Iowa Springs then, if they already have it, have they had problems with it?
Nope, well, John Kane at least and Andy have said that they've not had any issues with it, they love it, the businesses love it. So the two of them at least are very fond of the ordinance in general.
Okay.
Any other questions for us? Yes, so I believe in your packet is the dead tree issue. So Tom Drain, he's one of our part-time residents, he lives I'm not able to tell people where people live, actually, I probably shouldn't say that, right? So anyway, he lives nearby, and he identified a tree that's on Spring Street as being a potential hazard to both the electrical lines nearby and also his home, and asked us to remediate the situation. I do believe that tree is on town property. There is a picture in there, it's quite large, but it's definitely dead. And we're having Lamb Tree come look at it this week, so I believe Mary mentioned that, we should also have land come look at the other tree, so I wrote that down. So I'll talk to him about that as well, and I will let you know what they say.
Is this just a specifically dangerous tree because of the intersection of the electrical lines?
It's very tall and very dead. And honestly, the electrical ones would probably protect his house because it fall in the lines first.
But then the rest of the neighborhood has no power.
Yeah.
Aspen gets involved in that? And they, I mean, I know they trim, but I just wondered if maybe they would do something like that.
Is Aspen, what is Aspen?
Aspen.
Asplund, they're a company that goes around and they're contracted by Excel to trim the tree branches around lawns. They got their start trimming the bushes along railroad tracks, but they may be, I wonder if they would extract rather than trim.
I'll check with them. I know that Mr. Drain has contacted Excel about the issue. They have not responded to him, but maybe he did, they will.
Gosh, you know.
I think the big question is just whether or not it's on our town right away.
Yeah,
You know, we believe it to be, but I think that's the, you know, the qualifying.
yes, we don't have like a survey over there necessarily, so.
Spring Street is an interesting street to drive down. I went and looked at the Port that tree today, so I knew where it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also wanted to mention, there is a Revitalize Main Street grant that I'm planning on talking to the Design Review Commission about, because it's something Cindy Neely brought to my attention. Well, rather, she brought to my attention that we should consider working on the sidewalks that go from downtown to on Rose Street down to the city park. And then I received a link to this grant that would very easily qualify for that particular project. That grant is $10,000 to $250,000, and it's a 10% match for the town. So I just wanted to mention it to you. Obviously, you know, as we're talking about ARPA funding, I don't know if that's something that we can set aside since we don't know if we get the grant or not. Talking to Mary about it a little bit, so.
Are those all flag zones?
Yeah,
They're supposed to be, I would imagine.
and it wouldn't be the entire sidewalk. There is some sidewalk. There are just sections missing, so.
10 cents to the dollar. That's a great grant.
Those sidewalks are really pretty.
Good.
Yeah. What's
Well, we just got to quote for some flags.
Deadline to submit.
It's a rolling deadline. The next one is April 26th. But there are additional opportunities
And then when do they usually announce?
about a month afterwards.
A month?
Mhm.
Cause you could, with the ARPA funds, you may commit and then not get it done in this building season. So that may figure in whether we could use those funds.
Or let's go back to our priorities before we start adding to that huge wish list.
So here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, since planning commission is here, I just wanted to mention to you that we collectively are just sort of planning some things to make planning commission a really strong commission. And we're planning on doing some work on reviewing the comprehensive plan. And we hope that we can invite all of the commissions and the board of selectmen to attend some workshops on different things so that we are getting all of the experience that you wonderful people have and can provide to the planning commission, which is relatively new as far as members go, so. Yeah. And that's all.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, I will jump back to the ARPA fund road and bridge projects that we looked at before. And so specifically, you had asked me about snowplows and what kind of condition or design are they for, residential or commercial? They are commercial, so these were commercial plows. They are designed for, so when it says the 2019 Dodge for $10,000, what it is it's a plow that fits any truck but the, components to install it are designed for a Dodge. And so it can be easily transferred to another type of truck. It doesn't have to be Dodge, but we would have to buy the components to fit that Ford or attachment, yeah. So, but I was confirmed that those were commercial grade. The other question was, if we should consider larger trucks, vehicles, even military Humvees and things like that. After talking to our road bridge crew about it, they don't like that idea because our roads are very narrow. And so it may, Humvee may work great down Argentine towards the lake, but it doesn't work around Second Street when you're going around a tight knit area with cars parked on both sides, or even trying to go up switchback and turning. So our trucks work perfectly is what they said. They did say that the two trucks that we have, the 2019 Dodge and the 2017 Ford, have done a great job and they are in good condition. So they don't foresee us replacing them for another 5 years because it has not created tons of wear and tear on them. It's good, they're good trucks, is what I'm saying. They're maintaining them well, but they really do need snow plows. And if one of these trucks goes and they decided to upgrade and get another truck, the plow can also go to that truck. So they felt like that was way better bang for what they need to continue to maintain what our city needs with the snow plows. And the sander was the same thing. It's a sander that can go in the back of the truck. And it's commercial grade as well. So that's just to answer that about it. So, and if you guys want me to move forward, I would need to, because that's higher than my authority, unless we did them individually, then I could do it. Because my limit's 10,000
When do we need it? Next season?
next season, correct? Well, I don't know, April's the second snowiest month of the year.
Are we down right now?
Yeah. Yeah, they have fixed our, problem motors on these, and so, but again, they go out frequently. So, but they're working, so we're not like desperate.
We buy one right now?
I mean, it's up to you guys. We need them because our stock right now is at the end of life. And we're just, they're on, like I said, one of them's on, ties, plastic ties that's holding it up. So,
I'd just like to make sure that we've got this list in a priority before, I mean, I know it's something that we're going to need, but especially seasonal. But I'd just like to make sure that we're in sync with where we're allocating all those funds that we're not really.
I was just saying that we have,
Yeah,
we have one good one, at least. That's all.
yeah. And then the other question with the motor grader, now that we know that these funds can go to, we approved the motor grader, but we really need to get that, because there's a waiting list to get this fixed. And, I'm concerned that we really need to get behind it, so I wanted to make sure if that's okay to move forward with the board.
Yeah.
We haven't voted on it.
I think it's a good thing to go forward with it.
Okay, so that's that. We just, occasionally we still deal with complaints and code enforcement kind of issues. I did try to work out a resolution between two neighbors that were having a challenge between property lines. Went out there with a survey that we found in the property file. Took measurements, even though I did disclaimers, I'm not a surveyor. I can read a map. And we can take a tape measure and do approximate measurements. And so anyways, I did that thoroughly to talk to both of them. They're somewhat into an agreement, so I think that's better. The only way to solve this is if the property owner does put property pin into the area to show where exactly his neighbor can park, because he doesn't want his neighbor to park at all near him. But however, it's clear that part of this area is town right. So anyways, I've spent way more time than I should have on that. I mean, multiple days.
Making peace.
But it's good, we want to make peace for our community. Another thing is, graffiti. There are places around town that have graffiti. And so we've ordered the paint to paint on the dumpsters that they're gonna send us back. And we're trying to remove them. So hopefully by next week, the graffiti will be gone. So if you also see places, please let me know and we'll address it because we wanna make the town look good. I just wanna shout out to John. John's been a rock star. I know he's our single officer, but he saved the baby's life. And it's a big deal. The child would not be alive today without John. And so he ran to the scene and was willing to not stop until he saved his child. So thank you, John. He does this for a living, and I'm blown away by the things that he tells me every day that he's dealing with. So he tried to save another kid and was not able to this past weekend. And he put his life on the line again, so there's, sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not, but he has to go home with that and it's hard, so take him out to dinner. He deserved it. So next is, James Billingsley, just want to give an update on that. He has come several times to, ask if the town can respond to his complaint. I spent way more hours than I should have looking into this. I also created a packet to give to him, scheduled an appointment to meet with him, and I had Kasia sit in the meeting. And, we have I haven't sent it to you yet, but if you want it, I can send it to you. It's just a draft of what that meeting is about. And I hope that there's some resolution. We've invited him to be part of the process, even this next year. And I think that it's gonna work out. So I did not find in any of my, investigation that any permits were failed or any violations. There was I was thorough. There were some discrepancies on documents that I felt like next year for example, on the application, it said that the event would be over at 10 PM, but on the flyer, it said 9:30. And so there's a discrepancy. Doesn't mean that we failed in some ways. However, it was rushed to get all these things out and we tried to be as thorough as possible. But there are things that we will do better next year. And we'll have a lot more time to work through these things. And so, but I just want to let you know, it was addressed. I've asked him to review all the documents I gave him, which was every permit from the application to the amplified sound permit to the liquor license. And I told him, once you review it, let's sit down and talk again. And so if you find something that I missed, I'm open. But the goal to me would be peace and that we can make sure that he feels heard and that, and I did apologize to him that I did not realize how sensitive he was to these sounds and lights and things like that. And so we will work harder next year to make sure lights are pointed more down and sounds. We will get a reader to find out what the decibels really are, and then we'll just go from there. So that's an update. We discussed ARPA funds and we discussed ARPA funds. So, I guess, let me jump to the next thing is I spoke to Mark Collins and his crew that's working on the recruitment. This is in your packet, the latest of that. We've made several rounds of draft. However, they are now waiting to hear from you if there's anything that should be changed in this, because they're ready to launch this week. And then, it'll be open until May 17th. So I'd love to hear from you guys, since you've had a chance to look at it. Is there anything that needs to be clarified or changed or amended in any way?
I think it's a good start.
Okay. Are you okay with them releasing this? Okay, if not, please email me, and then I can start working on any of the changes that you may have or find. or just wording in general that you feel like just needs to be clarified, let me know by tomorrow tomorrow evening, I think that'll be by 5 o'clock, and then I'll go ahead and let Lois say, launch it after that. Thank you. Oh, and then I guess another thing, the last thing. Oh, two things, okay. So this one's an unfortunate, difficult situation. I could solve this on my own. However, I want to be above reproach on how we do things. And this is regarding the variable message sign. So I had no questions of what, we put some money into this to fix it so that we can use it. So, but in the process, I have come to find out that, it is a former staff member that no longer works for the town. He owns this. Has the title for it, and he's willing to barter and negotiate for the town to have this. So he's not interested in giving it to the town. So we have to come up with a solution. Either we purchase it or we trade, vehicles that are not working anymore. And so we were planning on getting rid of these vehicles because they're just now junk to the town. And so the first one is, well, I just want feedback from you. Are you okay with me moving forward and doing a swap trade? Or do you have other ideas out there?
What's the policy on getting rid of, broke down vehicles for the town? How does that? A lot of times there's a process so that would probably describe whether you could even entertain a barter situation.
Normally we put them up in auction and just sell it, and whatever we get, that's what we get.
But since they were initially bought with government funds, I think there might be a process that we might be overlooking some piece, I don't know.
You just get rid of fire trucks and fire vehicles through auction and whatnot.
I can look in the code, I'm not sure there's anything in the code on that point. Often, that sort of subject is addressed in a community's financial policies, which I'm not real familiar with. Disposition of vehicles in the property and equipment institutional category. I can look at the code and see.
And maybe we can kind of wrap that all up so that we maybe create a policy if we don't already, so that we just know that we're moving forward cleanly with things.
Right.
I just find it amazing that this variable message board appeared and we didn't realize where it came from. I honestly thought it was from the county and when we got it with COVID or whatever, and I know
Right.
some were loaned and they took, and then we invested all this money in it, la, la, la. I mean, this is just a strange story. And can we run a VIN search on it and title search and just make sure that it's really his and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not distrusting, but it's just such a bizarre.
I agree.
I want all the I's dotted.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it to you,
Yeah,
because this is very strange.
yeah.
Problem with all your eyes is dotted.
Yeah, I do a search. Sean Fry, I do a search.
Yeah.
That's who it is, it's Sean Fry.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
We have to do a bin search, bin inspection to get a plate anyway. So it will be done.
So I'll just tell you the vehicles. The first one is the flatbed truck. The engine is blown. It's just been sitting, nothing. The second is the Dodge Charger. This vehicle is, it is needing some massive work. So it needs a lot of work. However, we're not gonna invest any more money in this. And we did, I mean, these vehicles also are bought in auction all the time. And so, in fact, he told me the name of the place. It's like Rollers or something. It's in Denver, where they go and get these vehicles. John, do you know the name of it?
No, I don't have any experience with
I
that.
heard roller auction.
Yeah, okay.
That makes me even more skeptical if the information is coming from the party that's trying to get us to do the trade. I just want something legitimate. I'm open for a deal, but I just want us to know that we have a good solid package.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my recollection of discussion that surrounded variable message signs during COVID was that Kent had found a source, I believe it was in Silver Plume, that had like 6 of them. And we were looking at 1 or more, and then I thought the deal fell through, that we ended up not buying any.
That rings the bell, but
yeah.
yeah, the initial part, yeah.
But, yeah,
I have a variable message board to sell you.
well.
How many do you want?
Sorry, Jerry.
Fine. I usually don't use it, so. There for me.
You needed a good laugh.
If you're looking for a process, doesn't look like there's anything code, a quick look. If you have a financial policy, it occurs to me that in lieu of actually creating a whole ordinance process, and maybe you do that later, but to do this, you could do a resolution that has the board would adopt, that sort of memorializes how the town came into possession of the equipment that it's got, makes a finding that the equipment's no longer needed for public purposes and has, nominal value, and approves the disposition of that equipment by sale or otherwise in return for either money or other equipment. And in fact, you could plug in the message sign and say it's hereby proved to be acquired in this manner after the bin's been run. And that gets you done with the equipment and acquiring the equipment without having to necessarily invent a whole new code procedure. That's easy to write. So I can do that.
And then I just think we have to have in the back of our mind, if this deal isn't made, we invested a couple $1,000s, I would imagine, in repairing this, that we may just have to eat if this goes away, and.
And our need for the variable message sign is far greater in my mind than either of these non.
If it turns out to be, this legit deal,
Sure.
so.
Well, we would take the batteries out.
Well, until it's in a resolution, you can have it for your next meeting.
Thanks, Steve.
Wonderful. Okay, and then the last item on my list here is, I think Mary may wanna take this one if you want to.
Sure. About a month ago, I was contacted by the new accountant for Georgetown Cannabis, our marijuana store. And she was asking questions on reporting and how transactions are counted for on our ordinance for the occupational tax. And I looked at it and I emailed Jerry and he got back with me. And prior to her being their accountant, they had been paying, say someone came in and bought 5 items. Their register system would count that as 5 transactions rather than 1. So from the time they've been in business, they have been overpaying. And I received her amended reporting. Our ordinance states that they can go back 3 years to amend. I have not had an opportunity to confirm what she sent over today, but if it is correct, they are asking for a refund of $32,890.
Do they want that as a credit for the next couple of years? Then we can just waive their payments?
They're asking for a full refund.
Would they like to take 50% and then?
Right? Yeah.
Maybe they wanna talk to.
You should be in the marijuana business.
No, anyway, this all has to, I mean, I have to confirm the information that she sent, but, kind of huge.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was also, I noticed the 3-year limitation, so, just wanted to make sure that they weren't carrying it back further than that, so.
How long have they been licensed there?
It's been
Longer than that, hasn't
quite a while. I mean, this new company.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We made one of the parks after.
Or maybe they want to name one of their, you know, products after us.
I think we don't have it.
The code gives you a little, I've got a code section.
Okay,
An application for refund can be made within 3 years. And then the key sentence is that if the town treasurer determines that within 3 years of the due date, a vendor overpaid the occupation tax, he or she, which means the treasurer, shall process a refund or allow credit against a future remittance from the same taxpayer.
so it's our call, not theirs necessarily. I mean, I could see where there's, you know,
And you could do, it doesn't so state, but I think you could do it in whole or in part. I think that's within the reasonable authority of the treasurer to say, okay, $10,000 and the rest is a refund. Or if it's credit gratitude. That's what the code says, and so I think it gives, it's a little unusual. But I think it's written that way because it might be just, for some vendors, just more trouble to, it's just easier to get a credit and not charge it. I understand why they want cash, and, you know, that's a fair ask.
you did a great job writing that ordinance for us.
Apparently, I didn't know I had.
Good
that in there. It does say that. I think that's what it means.
I guess my next question would be, what are my parameters from you guys as far as,
Well, given that they've been collecting it differently than it should have been collected, what?
no, they haven't been collecting it differently, they've just been paying it to us.
Paying, yes, okay, sorry, wrong word.
Yeah,
So what, I mean, you could probably go at it from an annual average, what it would have been if they had done it per transaction rather than per item purchased. And just, I don't know,
Well, is the issue how much? I mean.
isn't that what you're
no,
asking?
the issue is, what would your preference be? I mean, can I, if I confirm everything, and do I, you know, is it 50% credit, 50% refund, or, I mean, what would your preference be to make them whole?
Well, I think, so, let me ask you this question, if that's over 3 years, obviously it's a little over $10,000 a year. You know, so if that keeps them true, then it basically would take them 3 years to recoup their money. So I think you find a balance between that and then try to keep them happy. I mean, they are a business in the town.
Theirs on their part reporting though, it wasn't as if we were billing them and said, you owe us this, and they, you know, paid up. So I think we would like to know what the impact is going to be by us refunding, you know, or dealing, you know, how is that gonna impact our overall budget and how we,
Well, I mean,
So-
obviously, we don't have anything, I mean, it's,
no, I mean, yeah, I don't mean today, the second, but yeah.
but, yeah, I see what you're
Well-
saying, but.
We would also have projected based on past performance, so our current budget is overblown. By what it, you know,
$10,000, $12,000, but.
Something like
if you
that.
take the average,
They lose that over the next 3 years regardless anyway. Because now if they go back, if they keep making the same amount, then over the next 3 years, it's gonna be less than what it has been the last 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because they're gonna be paying less onto it, so we have to count that too.
Yeah.
So I think whatever works out.
I mean, I
best.
prefer to have some of it be credit and to have some of it be cash. Coming up with the right split. I don't know, you could look at it from a lot of different ways.
I would imagine that you would wanna try to, instill a little goodwill, as best you can, obviously. But in other words, this wasn't, it wasn't our fault.
No, not at all.
So I mean, and simply come from that standpoint and say, we can't give you a 100% refund. I'm sure you wouldn't like a 100% credit. Is there a fine line or is there a way we can work together? Come up with a happy medium.
Well, in the end, the code makes it Mary's decision,
Oh, no, I agree.
and I get it.
But I mean, and you ought to make that point. You could say, I don't have to do a goddamn thing. But don't say that, but I mean, just say. You could say though that, that we would like to work with you because we obviously want you to be a valued vendor in this town.
Say we did 20,000 refund and 10,000 credit. We're still, based on just roughly in my head, the numbers that we've been budgeting for them. It's like that whole occupational tax is gonna go away for 2 years.
Yeah, correct.
That's a nice perk.
Well, not for us.
No, but I mean, for them, right, I'm just saying that that's gotta impact the bottom line positively.
Yeah.
So I mean, from that standpoint, I would imagine that, we're trying to work with them.
Sure.
Okay.
Does that give you enough to go on, or do you wanna?
Or come back to us with some, I just think we need to, we need to see what the impact is gonna be, not only today, but a couple years down the line, because it is gonna be something that we're not gonna be receiving, from any kind of a credit. And I don't think you wanna write a check for $30,000. Because every once in a while, we really start nickel and diming things and,
That's up.
Likely what will happen is Mary will confirm the actual dollar number and make a tentative decision within the scope of the authority that the code grants her and report back to you at a future meeting.
sounds good, Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay,
I have one more thing.
yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to update you that Bighorn is moving into applying for building permits.
Yay.
They're called Lakeview Platinum.
Sounds so suburban.
We issued the final, those letters for the site plan, so they are ready to go.
All right.
I moved to executive session. Under CRS 24-6-402, for A and E for a conference with the town attorney, town administrator. Invited persons and appropriate staff to receive legal advice and instruct negotiators concerning potential acquisition of real property adjacent to the Bighorn project. I further move to adjourn the council meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is seconded, go into executive session, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thanks,
opposed?
guys.
Thank you, everybody.